Hello, everybody. Welcome to our very first Uncommon 3-in-1. It's three people, one topic. I'm here with a couple of guys that are familiar with Uncommon, and we wanted to come in here and talk about uh, a topic from three different viewpoints. We're going to be doing these in the future, and this is our very first one. This was the brainchild of one Joshua Jarvis, who has been instrumental in helping Uncommon with some ideas. And so I want to thank him for his time, as well as one of my very own sons, Noah Todd, as well. So Joshua, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. What would you like to know? We're going to talk about marriage today, I think. So maybe it's a good idea to talk about, I'm married. I live in Atlanta. I have two children. One is 15. My son is 15, and my daughter is 12. I do digital marketing. I think we similar backgrounds in that respect. So I don't. Yeah, you could go anywhere with that kind of question, but I guess that's it.
Sure. I just wanted them to know, kind of a bit about you, kind of thing. Noah, give us a little 30-second about you, man.
Sure. I am married as well. Coming up on 2 years of marriage. We have one daughter who's almost 9 months old, and then one baby on the way. We don't quite know what the gender is. We find out very soon. But so we have one on the way, one's here, married for nearly 2 years. And I do social media, digital marketing kind of stuff, graduated from UNCC this year.
Right on. Right on. So our icebreaker questions may tap into some of the things that you've mentioned here. These can be just kind of, a quick hit answer. I wanted this to be something that when someone's watching this, they can relate to one of our perspectives of these answers. So real quick, how long did you date your spouse prior to marriage? Joshua.
See, we dated for about 4 years. I met her while I was in college when I was 19. So some of that length was more towards because I wanted to finish college. I was at Georgia Tech at the time. We just wanted to finish. As soon as I finished college, we basically got married. And that was like 19 years ago. So yeah, it's just, I think I proposed probably 2 years in. That gives you some perspective. Like if I had been older, we probably would have got married sooner.
Right on. All right. Excellent. Noah, give us the rundown, man.
So we dated for a year, and then we're engaged for a year. So 2 total years of dating. We started dating when we were 17. So we got married at 19, I believe. I think it was. We were very blessed to be in a situation where I could still be in college. She was out, and she was able to have a full-time job before we even got married. And so we were very blessed to be able to be married quite young.
Right on. Let's see. So myself, my wife, Dana, and I met in 5th grade. We started dating in 9th grade, and we have been married for just over 30 years. So when her and I met, we'll just say I was in junior high, basically. And so our first date was the 9th grade prom, right? And back when I had hair. And 3 months later of dating that summer, I told her I loved her, freaked her out. And then, I proposed about the summer after we graduated high school, knowing that we would wait 4 years for her to graduate and get married. And so she wanted to finish it early, and we got married a little bit earlier. But I wanted to give people a perspective that you could see that there is no one size fits all. You have this old fogey that's been married a long time, and you have Noah, a little bit younger, Joshua, and probably in the middle of us. And so, you know, successful and dysfunctional marriages are not predicated upon when you get married, what age it is, how long you've been married. I know of several marriages that have been married a very long time and still struggle with things. So we wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a barometer here. So the next real quick question is, so how long have you been married, you said, Joshua?
19 years.
19
So
years.
next July will be our 20th.
Right on. Okay.
So
Right on. Noah, yours is
Yep.
very, very soon. You're
2 years and 4 days.
2 years and 4 days. Exactly. Right on. In mine, obviously, is over 30. But this one is the one that is, you know, the one that probably makes Joshua the hallway answer. Have you ever had a disagreement? Have you ever
is that
had
a real question?
Yeah, that's a question. Have you ever had a disagreement?
I think it's better to say, when haven't you had a disagreement? I think that's
Well, the reason why I asked that question is that we all know that couple that, like, we never fight. We never fight.
that's not us. You know, we've gone from, you know, where the conflict was dysfunctional, and from my end, maybe sometimes even verbally abusive, not in the way that maybe you think, like a Hollywood story, like kind of thing, but just, you know, sarcasm and that kind of thing, to now, when our conflict is now our conflict, it can still be kind of heated, but it's respectful in a sense. And sometimes when a heated discussion happens, you know, there's a different sense now, because our life, our walk with Christ is different now than it was when we first got married.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of a foundation behind the argument. So we know we're not, you know, neither one of us is going to leave, that kind of thing. So that part has changed. You know, when you ask a simple question like, you know, do you ever argue? Like, yeah, we argue a lot. But I think sometimes the arguments, you know, produce really, really good fruit. And sometimes it's like, oh, okay, I'm being a jerk. So, yeah.
That's good. That's good. Noah, you and Kinsey ever have a disagreement?
Yes. I mean, yeah, we have disagreements. I mean, I know that for us, the engagement time was very stressful on us. That was probably the time where we disagreed or had tension the most. A lot of people who were telling us before we got married, they were warning us about the first year of marriage. And it was actually a billion times better than our engagement. I think part of that just being like, we were able to resolve our conflicts with each other. It wasn't like, hey, I'll see you in 3 days and we can formally like knock this out. It was not just be over text or phone or whatever it is. But in our second year of marriage, it definitely it shifted to that. Our marriage, the first year of marriage was much better than the engagement, but we still struggled with some communication and how to fight. Essentially, we're not really looking for how to completely get rid of it. It's kind of inevitable. It's going to happen. So I think in our second year of marriage, the way in which we fight has become a lot more fruitful, I guess, as Joshua said.
Okay. So as you can see, obviously, you know, these are meant to be just quick hitting stuff so that people can understand that, yes, 30 years into it, Dana and I have what we call intense fellowship. 30 years, you're bound to go through some, not just, well, I'm going to watch that program, or I don't want to go back to the store. You have bigger, longer kind of issues or topics, like how we communicate, transitions from having children to empty nests. So now we move into actual questions that Joshua will now like and enjoy a little bit better. Pre-marriage preparation. Joshua, did you and your wife have any kind of premarital counseling?
No, not really. I think each one of us identified as a believer, but we didn't get any counseling. We got a 30-minute session from the guy that married us, and it was like, do you guys love Jesus? And like, yeah, sure. And it's like, okay, great. I'll see you on Sunday. So that was pretty much it. I don't know how deep you want to go into that. There's a lot of things I could say about the premarital sort of period, but yeah, I mean, we got nothing. I didn't read any books on it, and I also didn't have any examples in my life where people were married. So for me, I kind of went into it thinking I'm going to stop. Like everyone else is getting divorced in my family. In fact, I can't think of a single person in my family that hasn't been divorced. And I thought, well, I'm going to change that. And so when I married for life. And so I think that was kind of the thought process going in. Everyone sort of knew how I felt, but if we were to write a story about our marriage or a book about our marriage, we would find that, a lot of those thoughts, a lot of those things we had, like the ideas we had before marriage, sort of go away when it's like, oh, this is real. So yeah.
Right on. Noah, tell us a bit about, did you have some premarital counseling?
So we were, again, very blessed when we got engaged at our church. There, one of the elders is a licensed counselor and the head of like a counseling institute. So we just had a really good premarital counseling experience. He kind of just led us through a book, but the main focus of it was not particularly on expectations or practical things of marriage. It was more so spiritually based. So it was more so about our relationship with Christ. And so that for us was a great foundation of knowing that if me and Kenzie on a human to human level are fighting, if our spiritual connection to Christ is not where it needs to be, that's going to make the earthly connection suffer. And so it really made us have a good foundation going to the marriage, not just with each other in our communication. I mean, it certainly touched on that, but it was more heavily focused on our own spiritual walks as individuals, building those things up. So it was a really fruitful time. We look back very fondly on our premarital counseling portion.
Very nice. Dana and myself would fall a little bit more toward Joshua's story of, Dana was a believer. I was, by the world standard, definitely a believer. By what I know of now, my walk with Christ, not at all. I mean, it was, I wasn't hostile to it. I read my Bible and went to church, but didn't have a relationship with Christ. So when we had our counseling, it was it was light, right? And I look at counseling that Noah and Kenzie has gone through, and my other son Joshua and his wife have gone through, and the extensive time they have invested in that, and that Dana and I did not. And we've had to invest in that elsewhere. But ours was a little bit like Joshua. I think it was a couple of sessions, 30 minutes a piece, but nothing that had left me with, I'm working on my marriage through the lens of Christ, my walk with Christ, and then our walk with Christ together. And so whenever we get emails, prayer requests, contact form submissions, 98% of the time it's about broken marriages, divorce, dysfunction. And when we respond back, we always ask questions like, one, are you both believers? Do you ever, if you get counseling, have you ever done marriage studies together? Just things that do you spend time together in your walk with God? You know, where is God at in your marriage, basically? And so you could see right here, just these three people, you know, two have similar, sound like I had a little bit more than Joshua, but Noah, of the three of us, seems like he has had extensive preparation before his marriage. And so, and Joshua touched on a little bit of our next segment, your marriage experience. Is it what you expected, Joshua?
You know, I didn't have, like I said, I didn't have any real expectations because I didn't have any role models in that area. There was kind of a pivotal moment, and I don't know if we'll get to it or not, but kind of a pivotal moment in our marriage, but that sort of shifted everything. I didn't have any expectations. I just thought this was the person that I'm gonna, you know, spend my life with, and you know, the things I think about now, like if I was, you know, trying to teach my son to, you know, to serve his wife and a lot of biblically based things, I didn't have any of that. Like I didn't, you know, the churches that I had gone to didn't talk about marriage. They were more focused on some other things. It just didn't come up, and so I didn't. Is it everything I expected? I mean, I guess because I didn't have anything to judge it by. You know, and this is kind of disservice to my marriage, but it almost feels like I just, you know, I found someone I liked. She was my best friend, and so I want to spend more time with her, and that's basically what happened. I think the biggest shocker was it's just sort of the amount of stress that we would both endure over things that don't have eternal value. Like the kind of annoying things that you talked about, like going back to the stove, you know, leaving the thing off the right, the toothbrush, you know, and how, you know, because you're married, your guard, I think the biggest thing I you know, now that I'm thinking about it out loud, kind of processing it, might be that, you know, because you become so comfortable, you've let down a lot of guards and barriers and frankly filters. And so you can talk to your spouse in ways that are a lot less loving than you would anyone else, because you're so comfortable. It's like, well, I'm so comfortable. There's no need to put a filter or a face on this. And, but then that stuff comes out and it's like, oh, wow, I can't believe this was in my heart, the way I talked to you just now. And, you know, that's probably the biggest reality. Like I never realized that, you know, someone else could be kind of like that, almost like a mirror, like, oh, wow, this is the way I'm treating you is reflecting, you know, the things that are going on in my heart right now. Like I didn't know that. And so I guess that'd probably be the biggest sort of aha of marriage, especially the early years.
Yeah, definitely. Noah, is it everything you thought and it was expecting?
I mean, to kind of pick up on what he was saying there, I mean, it definitely was a thing where a lot of what our counseling touched on was how much it reveals our own sin, another person who's that close to you, and just the ways that perhaps that sin wasn't coming up before, or it was, and you were oblivious to it, and that person wasn't coming to you being like, hey, why'd you talk to me like that? Whereas a spouse would. But yeah, I mean, I definitely would say it's what I expected. I think one of the things so we got married in October. And so when that January rolled around, we were kind of like, so what do you want to, what are some goals we want to set for the year? Some stuff like that. I think we were naive and what we could achieve as a couple, like 3 months into marriage, in terms of, we had so many goals of like reading books and, you know, seeing people from church weekly and all those kinds of things. And we fell short in almost every category because we were very like scattered in every which way about our goals as a married couple. So I think internally we were pretty good ourselves that year with the expectations we had set beforehand. But I think the way that we had suffered in the first year was we neglected many outside factors by our own fault. And so that was one of the things that we had to correct this year, of like having the right expectations for ourselves, especially coming with a newborn, knowing that life has to change and we have to be okay with that. We also need to stretch ourselves to serve God and give glory to Him, and know how we can do that in a way that doesn't burn us out.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I didn't have a good role model either. Everybody basically in my family, but a couple of couples got divorced, and so a few of them more than once. So the role model really wasn't there, which I have coined my phrase, the anti-role model, learning more from a bad example in there because lack of a good example, right? And from a perspective of expectation, I mean, Dana and I dated so long before marriage. I think that we were pretty consistent once the I do's happened, but there's just a switch from dating to living together and doing every moment together. And, those type things sneak up on people, I think. And especially if in your head you have painted this picture, and I think guys have their own picture of like, I'm still gonna hang out with the guys, I'm gonna play ball, I'm gonna have a movie night. I mean, no, you're not even close to that. You're probably gonna have to change what you do. And then from a woman's standpoint, sometimes we know people that in this fairy tale princess in a carriage kind of wedding in marriage that you've been exposed to or taught, that is not real either. And so finding that actual tone of your marriage, I think, is what that first year is all about. That adjustments of, wow, I can't talk to that person this way without being called out, or I can't go hang out and do the things I used to do because I was single. Now I'm married. And so that expectation had to change a little bit. In this same section, what do you do right now to invest in your marriage? Like, what are the things, processes, habits, new things you do to invest in that? Joshua, why don't you go ahead?
So I mentioned there was like a turning point for us in our marriage, and I can tell you the story in a time, but basically we ended up in a like a marriage class, and it was pretty intense. It was a 12-week class. You had to read, it was like 3 or 4 pages of like single spaced small type, custom written stuff from the pastors. And they would take us through it. And it's in that class that I realized I could have a relationship with Jesus. And so there was a difference between, like, I thought I had the fire insurance, I said the prayer and read my Bible, very much similar to what you said, TJ. But I didn't have a relationship. And so it was there, like, we went into this thing thinking our marriage, like I thought our marriage was like, on a scale of 1 to 10, it was like an 8 going on 9,
That sounds like an uncommon weekly question.
Well, when she was asked, she was like 2. And so I was like, what? Excuse me? Like what? And, it just, in that class, a lot of things were uncovered. And so this actually ties back to, your question, and say, well, once I was kind of like, my eyes were open to, 1, how our marriage was, and then, just 2, that there was a relationship I could have with Jesus, and it kind of changed the way I looked at life. Then being the sort of goal setter and planner that I am, like, I'm reading a book every month. I'm actively doing devotionals. We do try to do them together. I think the biggest thing, like the biggest takeaway though, was in that class, they kind of forced us to pray together. And before, prayer was this, this thing that I would do in silent or when I thought about it, and not something that was like intentional, trying to be the spiritual leader of the family. And then having to be put in that awkward position of doing that, it was like, oh no. But then you think about it, it may be one of the most intimate things that you can do. And so that's actually grown from praying together with her over really important things to fostering this thing in our family to where we pray at night with the kids involved. We used to pray over them. Now they participate. And then also with devotions, we used to try to do these separately. We might talk about something we read that was really, really good. She has a different way of approaching, her own growth. But now, like, the kids and all of us are reading the Bible together. There's like the Bible app where you can go through the Bible in 365 days, and it has like little devotionals and things. And so we read it, like we've been reading the prophets, and it's brutal. And we say, and we get to have great conversations about that. I don't want to rabbit trail down there, but it's those sort of things, I think, that are continuing to add value to our relationship, especially now in a season where we've got, kids that are, one is in high school, one is in middle school, going to high school. And so the time that we would normally have, we would just get to spend, more alone time because they'd be asleep, because they're younger or whatever. We're sort of spending it together, investing in our walk with Christ. And it's producing the same sort of fruit that our sort of alone time would have been when we were conversing. There's a different kind of alone time, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Right. Exactly. Noah, how about you? What do you guys do to invest in your marriage currently?
So I know I struggled with a consistent prayer life. And so one of the things that we've actually been a little laxed on in the past week, but somewhat consistently recently, we've been doing a thing to help both myself and her, is we've been just waking up earlier in the morning and spending about 30 minutes in prayer together, just going over a list from our midweek kind of group and requests we know from church, family, ourselves, different things that we pray over throughout the week, our national leaders, stuff like that. That's been really good for us together, but also just it keeps us accountable, that I'm also spending time in prayer myself individually. And then right now we're going through a Bible reading plan, and we will read, and then we have it's a family worship guide thing. We don't use it particularly with Harper because she's 9 months old. So it's kind of difficult to get her to get anything particularly out of it, but she kind of reads it to her. But we'll both individually read that and kind of discuss what we kind of take away from the day about the reading. So right now we're in Exodus. It just started the plan at the end of August. So
Right. Yeah.
we read through Genesis and John to start. But so we've done that mostly. We haven't done many topical marriage studies. We've usually just been good about just picking a book of the Bible and a commentary that we trust, and trusting that God would work out what we need to learn about our own lives and our marriage through it, and knowing that we would become closer with Him and all that through the particular study. So
Sure. We learned very early on. I say early on. I'm not the sharpest tool in the drawer, but I'd say maybe 8 years into our marriage, realized that communication had to be addressed and worked on. And so, Dana and I, we've done many marriage studies, not always back to back when we felt that we wanted to step into one or felt we needed something. There have been times we've just kind of read, a book of the Bible together. We kind of watched something on Right Now Media, just researched into a topic and let God, just speak to us about that. And, we homeschooled our boys, and we all work together. And so, Dana sits basically right there, and so we spend a lot of time together, and we want to speaking and discussing topics all the time about our marriage and communication, family, and, all that kind of stuff. And I could say that I've been in small groups before and have run across many couples that have never, ever done any kind of work on their marriage, from either a Bible study or a book study, just something focused on marriage. And they may talk about, we're always fighting about this, or, talking about that, but they never really step into bringing God into that equation about either a topic or something in their marriage that they need to work on. And, for those watching this, I'd like to say that this was something that you do this study, and then that's going to be good for 5 years. This is going to have to be something you invest in on a consistent basis on hard topics. And I don't know where you guys land on what you might focus on more in your marriage. Finances is one of those things that really sneak up on couples that go from dating to married, because many times you may not discuss how you handle your finances, or just, discipline or communication, whatever it is. For us, it's been more around communication. And, being homeschooled, or having a homeschool the boys and working together, we're on display 24/7. There is no hiding of, wow, we have a great marriage. That's why I asked that question. You ever had a disagreement? Because I know people who have told me, we never fight. That is a lie. That's 100% lie. Everybody struggles with something in their marriage. You're probably ignoring it. And that's why you think you don't fight. And so, have you guys ever had any counseling, marriage counseling, or have each have you have a mentor that you can reach out to for questions, support, prayer, that type of thing? No, let's start with you this time. Let's just spin it up.
Switching it up.
Yeah.
We haven't done any counseling, particularly outside of the premarital counseling. It hasn't been very long, so.
Sure.
Outside of, we have obviously great role models with you and Steve, who are great husbands for us for me, I guess, to see in my life. I wouldn't say I particularly have a mentor. There are men in the church that I obviously aren't like, hey, I'm mentoring you kind of thing, but
sure,
they're very much people that I can talk to and reach out to and speak with and do regularly on things of marriage and your Christianity and service to the church, all those things. So I definitely feel very blessed with the community that I have at my church, and just the amount of men that do care about their marriage, care about their children, and know how important that is to God.
Sure. Right on. Joshua, how about you?
So I told you about the class in the last question that we went through, this 12-week thing. We were so changed by that, that we sort of joined that ministry. It was a marriage ministry at the time at our church. It was called Married Forever. And ended up being, facilitators and that stuff. Obviously, we weren't teaching anything. It was just kind of like, we actually thought, we need help. And what better way to get help than to be so kind of immersed in the material. The material that we're working through, drew on a lot of different, very popular books. The 5 Love Languages, the stuff that Jimmy Evans writes, Gary Chapman, and Gary Thomas. Just some really, really good stuff. And it hits all those things that you talked about. You're on my left, so I'm doing that. But it hit on all those things. So finances, oh, we're only supposed to have one account. Like we literally didn't know that. And we were having, like you said, we were having discussions about that. And we were like, oh, okay, this is what God wants. This is what we need to do. Like there was just so many things. And I think, in that moment, the best thing about it was that we were teachable because we wanted to fix it. So we were willing to accept the leadership of the leaders of that. It was George and Bonnie. And these guys were like, older couple. They were really feisty. George, while they moved away, so he's not really like kind of mentoring me anymore, but he was someone that I could go to. I could ask him questions and he would tell me. He was the kind of guy that, you want as a mentor. You ask him a question like, how can I fix this about my life, or this thing is happening? And he would say, well, the problem is you, and it's like, I want your help. I need to fix this. And you're telling me that it's me, I'm at fault. And he would be like, yes. And here's why. And he's like, you're being a jerk, you're doing this, you're doing that. And it wasn't like a demeaning, like, mean sort of thing. It was literally, he was calling me out and holding me accountable in a way that no man had ever done. And so I really like, that's who I look at as my sort of spiritual father, if you would. But outside of them, kind of like what Noah said, I've had people in the church where, whether it's through a men's group or something that we're involved in, that we could, I could call on them. I don't call on them, maybe as much as I should, but I have them. But I don't have and I think that's probably one thing that I am missing is like an active mentor. Like that is a missing part, because it's, I don't know where I'm going, right now, because I don't have any person to sort of be there with me saying, hey, okay, here's what you're going to expect in your 40s. Here's what you should expect with teenagers. I don't have anyone like that. And I think a mentor could help. I think Noah is like, I'm very jealous of Noah that he has, those things in place already. I can't imagine what what your family's going to be like, Noah, because of you, having those things in place. So I feel like I think trailblazers, it makes you sound too adventurous, like that. It's not the right word, but without a mentor, I feel like almost like an adventurer. I could go off and fall off the ravine, ruin everything because I don't know anything. But anyway, yeah. So that's where I'm at.
Well, when you talk about that feedback you get from that in your that mentor, it reminds me of Adam, right? I'm always. Everybody, always blames Eve, man. And me, my focus is on Adam standing like 4 feet to the left of Eve, right? Don't even get me started that Adam was called to take care of the garden and keep it long before Eve was even created. But what was his first, you're looking for your mentor to say, yeah, your wife's in the wrong. Even Adam, look what this woman has done that you gave me, right? He was looking for God to, fix Eve, right? So that's not, you're not the only one, bro. I've never really had a mentor like that either. I've always had guys in my life that, I identify with, like, man, that guy is strong in his faith, but I'm in a small group where half the group is like retired. Don't let the white hair fool you. I mean, I'm only 51. I'm just in the 50s. Okay. I'm just trying it out. I have guys that, they're in their mid, late 60s, even early 70s. And, I'm always trying to, I'm a gleaner by nature. I want to cherry pick, ideas and let you talk. I'm going to listen and that kind of thing. And so I think it's always important, I think, for us to have someone, whether it be an official mentor or not, have someone older than us and one that's younger than us that we can pour into. And so you get both perspectives, because with, our Joshua and Noah, I mean, these guys, I mean, they, you can see that if you approached your marriage way back when, kind of like investing, right? If you'd invested as a young man, the old man, you'd have taken care of probably. If you would have maybe invested in your marriage early on, even before you said the I do's, you could be reaping the rewards of that foundation, not this picture perfect, pristine marriage, but a foundation that could not be cracked, right? And so So this is the last one I have for actual questions, and then we can move into general conversation after that if we want to. But Noah, what is one piece of advice if you could give the pre-married you, would you give?
I got it in the premarital counseling, but it's still, it's one of those things where I wanted to stick as much as possible, but it was just your relationship with Christ is far more important than your marriage. And so that's something that I want to love Christ more than I love Mackenzie. And so that'll be something that sustains our marriage and our relationship and my relationship with her. Other than that, I would probably say that our community and church is absolutely vital to our marriage. I think that when I go and have dinner with someone from church, I think that discussing Christ and marriage and all that kind of stuff with them is one of those things where it's like, it's kind of like a gut check, like, what am I doing? How am I doing with those kinds of things? And it's a good reminder of people outside of yourself, because even though you can talk with your spouse about it and all that, it's good to talk with other couples who are of similar faith and values of you that are in a different place that you can glean from and get a perspective from them about what maybe you should be doing. So I know that for me, that's the two biggest things, and ironically both have nothing to do with the actual marriage itself, but I think that those two things are very important for me and Kenzie in terms of our long-term forever marriage.
Sure. Joshua?
Yeah, I think you stole my thunder a little bit. I think the relationship with Christ is probably the biggest one, because that was like I said, that was kind of the turning point for our marriage, is like understanding. I'll never forget. I'd gone to George, the mentor we talked about, and I thought I had a relationship with Christ. I thought I was understanding what he was saying, and I said, it's still not working. And he just gave me this image of Christ, being on the cross and loving all these people that are spitting on him and just hurling the insults, and his arms are out like this. And, that the example, whenever I say it out loud, it just sounds like so ridiculous, as if my behavior caused her behavior to be bad. So therefore I'm going to be like Christ and receive it. I mean, I created the mess I'm in. So it's not anything like that, but something about that conversation made me go to prayer on my knees and say, Lord, I have to give all these things to you, these wounds and all these things I have, because I'm taking it out on people I love. And so that was like the biggest thing that I wish, if we had started our dating, our relationship with Christ instead of, just the natural attraction and the things that we enjoyed. I think that would be the biggest one. And then the other one would be, if I had to give advice to someone, it would be, obviously make Christ first, like Noah said. And then for me, it would be knowing that, when you're getting into marriage, they always say, like, that's not 50-50, it's 100-100. And I never understood what that meant until, like, just, my goodness, in the last 10 years, like, oh, I need to give everything to God and give everything to her, like serve her completely, in order for this to have the harmony that I want. Like, we can get by on some days just on, whatever chemistry or whatever you want to call it. But, for the long-term success, I've got to be constantly trying to serve her. And when I think that realization is, like, once you get it, you're like, okay. And then when things are going wrong, I can always go back and check and say, okay, what's happened? Oh, I've been selfish in this area, or first I have to check my relationship with Christ, and then have to check, am I serving her? And those two things are kind of my guideposts for marriage. Like, okay, things are going wrong in my life. Is it my relationship with Christ? Okay, no, that's good. Everything's good. Whatever. Then check. Okay, well, how's my relationship with her? Am I serving her? And then usually one of those two questions, I end up discovering that I've dropped the ball somewhere.
Right. Yeah, I think that I didn't come to Christ until about 5 years after we got married. Got a relationship with Christ, And so I would have said to myself, you know, hey, knucklehead, you know, listen to Dana, you know, look at Dana. She's, you know, she wanted to lead me to Christ in the first place. And so coming to that conclusion sooner, and then working on communication from like day one. It's just set some, I don't know, just some realistic expectations when it comes to some of the big things. You know, we had similar ways we did certain things, and then some things vastly different that didn't become known until after we said I do. Always remained extremely close with each other. Never had issues of like, wow, we're going to separate on this. This is a deal breaker kind of thing. But I think it would have been better if we would have worked on some things earlier on. I wouldn't have taken so long to mature. I'm sure she would probably say the same thing. And that's an ongoing process. I mean, 51, and I feel like I'm just getting into second grade. If you had to relate it to, you know, in kindergarten, I just stopped eating paste. So, yeah, I think that we can all look back, and hindsight's always 20/20, the things we could do. And I think that as we look, you know, to the next step, I think for those watching this, you know, Uncommen's always trying to develop content that challenges people, sheds light on topics that could help you wherever you are in this, you know, marital process. We have devotions on, you know, divorce. We have devotion on new marriage. We have devotion on dating, waiting for that right person, and everything in between. And so there is no silver bullet other than Christ being in your marriage. And so I think that if anything comes out of these 3-in-1 sessions, I think it's that well, we all had different perspectives of how we approach that topic. Maybe like, oh, I get, you know, premarital counseling, or I work on it after I, you know, get married. I'm still working on it, or whatever. I think that always having Christ in the midst of your relationship, maybe a husband, dad, or a leader, is paramount. Is paramount to any kind of success we could ever attempt to describe. And so I hope that some of this resonates with those watching this. And if you have struggles and you have prayer requests, please reach out to us at uncommen.org, and you can let us know how we can encourage and support and help in any way. And so, guys, I want to thank you for your time today, and just revisiting, you know, what we've all have gone through and are still going through, and how we approach that, and how we can, you know, give God more glory. So
I think one of the particular things I wanted to, before we end, was just that no matter how much you work on your marriage and all that, there are some things that you are meant to suffer, and you're supposed to go through those trials no matter how hard you work on it.
Sure.
Out of the purposes of God to bring you closer to him and to have you lean on him. So just if you were listening to this and thinking, oh, I just really need to work harder, really need to work, maybe you do,
Yeah.
but the power of it relies in the Holy Spirit and God. And so those struggles and all that are there on purpose. You're not going to like arrive one day, not before he comes back,
Right.
or you
Right.
pass away.
There will be trials and tribulations. Amen. Well, guys, I thank you for your time today. Guys, if you are seeing this for the very first time, be on the lookout for another 3-in-1 down the line. We'll rotate through some topics. And if you have an idea or want to be part of one of these sessions, please reach out to me at tj@uncommen.org. And as always, since you're going to be something, be uncommon.